The ancient warrior Vexithara had been frozen in time for over 4,000 years, standing like a dark statue in the heart of the abandoned space station Omega-9. His massive body was carved from what looked like black stone, but strange. Red veins pulsed through it like a heartbeat, casting eerie shadows on the metal walls around him. The station itself was huge, bigger than most cities, floating dead in space where 3 different alien empires met their borders. Every kid in the galaxy grew up hearing scary stories about the Silent Guardian. Parents would whisper warnings about the cursed station where ships went to die. The Zephyrian traders spoke of merchant vessels that vanished without sending even a distress signal. The crystal beings from Andromeda had lost 3 entire research fleets trying to study the mysterious warrior. Even the mighty Korvaxian Empire, with their planet-destroying warships, kept their distance from Omega-9. But Dr. Kim Hyun was different from most people. She didn't believe in ghost stories, and she definitely didn't believe that something could stay dangerous for thousands of years without a good reason. Her small research ship, the Sol Dawn, looked tiny compared to the massive station growing larger on her view screen. The ship was nothing special, just a modified cargo hauler with extra scanners and computers bolted onto it, but it was home to her small team of scientists. Red warning lights flashed across her control panel as 3 different alien communication channels started screaming at her at once. The Zephyrian ambassador's voice came through first, his words translated into Korean by her ship's computer. "Human vessel, you are approaching forbidden space. Turn back immediately or face the consequences." Then came the harsh metallic voice of a Korvaxian war commander. "Primitive humans, your ignorance will doom you all. The Ancient One must not be disturbed." Finally, the singing tones of an Andromedan crystal being filled her speakers. "Young seekers of Earth, the sleeping death awaits all who dare approach. Please, for the sake of your species, retreat now." Kim Hyun turned down the volume and kept steering toward the station. Her assistant, Park Jin, was hunched over his scanner readings, his face pale with worry. He was young, barely out of the Space Academy, and this was his first real mission beyond Earth's solar system. "Doctor, the energy readings are completely crazy," Park Jin said, his voice shaking slightly. "I've never seen anything like this. The whole station is putting out more power than our sun. Maybe we should listen to them and turn back." Hyun shook her head and reached into her jacket pocket, pulling out 3 pieces of ancient stone tablets covered in strange symbols. She had found them in the ruins of an old alien library on Mars, buried under centuries of red dust. Most scientists thought they were fake, but Hyun had spent 2 years translating the mysterious writing. "These tablets tell a different story, Jin," she said, running her fingers over the carved symbols. "According to this, Vexithara wasn't some monster or weapon. He was a hero who made the ultimate sacrifice to protect everyone. The galaxy has been afraid of him for so long that they forgot why he's really there." The Sol Dawn drifted closer to the station, and Hyun could see the massive structure more clearly now. It was shaped like a giant flower with 8 metal petals extending from a central hub. The metal was black with age, but strange patterns of light danced across its surface like aurora in Earth's sky. Smaller ships, or what was left of them, floated around the station like broken toys. Some were just empty shells, their crews long gone. Others had been twisted into impossible shapes, as if reality itself had been bent around them. Park Jin swallowed hard as he saw the wreckage. "Those ships, what happened to them?" "Fear," Hyun said simply. "Fear made them panic, and panic got them killed. But we're going to do things differently." Her ship's docking computer found an old airlock on one of the station's outer arms. As the Sol Dawn connected with a soft thud, alarms started going off on every alien ship within 100 light-years. The 3 empires had been watching Omega-9 for centuries, and now someone was actually boarding it. Inside the station, something that had been sleeping for 4,000 years began to wake up. Deep in the central chamber, Vexthara's eyes opened for the first time since the fall of his civilization. They blazed like twin red stars, casting new shadows in the ancient darkness. The warrior's massive form began to shift slightly, sending vibrations through the entire station. Kim Hyun felt the tremor through her ship's hull and smiled. "Hello there, old friend," she whispered. We've come to listen to your story." At the fair, airlock hissed open, and Kim Hyun took her first step onto the ancient station. The air was surprisingly breathable, though it tasted old and metallic like coins left in water for years. Her boots echoed on the dark metal floor as she walked down a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. Strange blue lights flickered along, the walls barely providing enough light to see by. Park Jin followed close behind her, his scanner beeping frantically. "Doctor, the energy levels are going crazy. It's like the whole station is waking up." They didn't have to walk far before they found him. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, and there in the center stood Vex Thara. He was even more incredible. Up close than Hyun had imagined. The warrior was at least 12 feet tall, his body looking like it was carved from black volcanic glass. Red energy flowed through channels in his armor like molten lava, pulsing in rhythm with something that might have been a heartbeat. The moment Hyun stepped into the chamber, everything changed. Vex Thara's consciousness hit her mind like a tsunami of pure thought and emotion. Other alien species who had tried to approach him had been instantly burned to ash by the psychic explosion, their minds unable to handle the contact. But humans were different. Where other creatures' minds shattered like glass, Hyun's consciousness bent and adapted, absorbing the mental shock without breaking. Images flooded her mind in a chaotic rush. She saw worlds she'd never imagined, covered in crystal cities that reached toward purple skies. She witnessed the Kethmari Empire in its glory days, millions of proud warriors with skin like polished stone and eyes that burned within a fire. They had been the guardians of their part of the galaxy for thousands of years, protecting smaller species from cosmic threats. Then came the darkness. Through Vex Thara's memories, Hyun experienced the terror that had brought down an entire civilization. Something had emerged from the space between dimensions, a hungry entity that fed on fear and despair. It wasn't just a monster. It was like living nightmare made real, growing stronger every time someone felt afraid. The creature had swept through star system after star system, consuming entire populations and leaving empty worlds behind. The Kethmari had fought bravely, but their weapons were useless against something that existed partly outside normal reality. Entire fleets of their greatest warships had vanished without firing a single shot. Planets with billions of inhabitants had gone silent overnight. The Empire was dying, and with it, any hope of stopping the entity from spreading to the rest of the galaxy. In their final desperate hour, the Kethmari had discovered only one solution. Someone had to become a living prison, using their own life force to create barriers that would contain the creature. The process would require incredible mental strength and would mean eternal isolation, slowly dying over thousands of years while holding back cosmic horror. Vex Thara had volunteered without hesitation. "You see now," his voice whispered in Hyun's mind, carrying the weight of 4,000 years of loneliness. The words didn't come through her ears but seemed to form directly in her thoughts. "I am not the guardian they fear. I am the lock, and I am the key, and I am the prisoner all at once." The mental contact should have driven her insane, but somehow Hyun held on. She felt his incredible sadness, his determination, and underneath it all a spark of hope that he thought had died long ago. "You endure," Vex Thara said, and she could feel his amazement. "How do you not break? Others who touch my mind are destroyed. Instantly, yet you remain whole." Before Hyun could answer, her communication device crackled to life. Lee So-young's urgent voice came through from the Soul Dawn. "Doctor, we've got big problems out here. I'm detecting massive energy spikes from at least 50 different ships. The Zephyrian Empire just sent 3 battle cruisers. The Korvaxians have 2 dreadnoughts incoming, and the Andromedans are deploying some kind of reality warping device. They're all demanding immediate evacuation, and they're talking about destroying the station if we don't comply." Through the station's ancient sensors, Hyun could see the alien fleets converging on their position. The Zephyrian ships looked like flying crescents, their hulls shimmering with energy shields. The Korvaxian dreadnoughts were massive grey rectangles, bristling with weapon arrays that could crack planets in half. Most terrifying of all were the Andromedan vessels, which seemed to shift and change shape as she watched, their crystal hulls bending light around them in impossible ways. "They fear what they do not understand," Vexthara said sadly. For millennia they have seen only the weapon I became, not the being I once was. Park Jin grabbed Hyun's arm, his face pale with fear. Doctor, we need to leave now. Those ships out there could turn us into space dust without even trying. But Hyun stepped forward instead of back, reaching out to place her palm against Vexithara's crystalline chest armor. The moment her skin touched the ancient material, she felt the full weight of his burden. It was like trying to hold back an ocean with her bare hands, an endless struggle against something that wanted to devour everything she'd ever loved. "We're not leaving you alone anymore," she said firmly, both out loud and through their mental connection. For the first time in 4,000 years, Vexithara felt something he had almost forgotten existed: hope. Kim Hyun made a decision that shocked the entire galaxy. Instead of leaving Omega-9 like every sane person would do, she ordered her team to set up a permanent research camp right inside the ancient station. The alien fleets surrounding them went absolutely crazy when they realized what the humans were doing. "Doctor, this is insane," Park Jin said as he helped unload equipment from the Sol Dawn. "We've got 50 warships pointed at us, and you want to redecorate this place?" But Hyun was already connecting power cables and setting up her computers in a chamber near Vexthara's position. "Jin, we're making history here. No one has ever stayed close to him for more than a few minutes. We're going to be the first." Lee So-young was monitoring communications from their makeshift command center, her screens filled with angry messages from 3 different empires. "The Zephyrians are threatening to board us. The Korvaxians say they'll blast the station to pieces if we don't leave in 6 hours. And the Andromedans, well, they're just screaming in colors I can't even translate." Their 4th team member, Engineer Choi Min, was busy setting up atmospheric processors and life support systems. He was a practical man who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "At least the station's power grid still works," he said, connecting their equipment to the ancient energy network. "Whatever built this place knew what they were doing. These power conduits are more advanced than anything we have on Earth." As the days passed, Hyun spent more and more time in mental contact with Vexithara. Each conversation revealed more about the terrible burden he carried. The entity he contained wasn't just a monster, it was something called the Void Hunger, a parasite from the space between dimensions that consumed entire realities by feeding on negative emotions. "Show me," Hyun said during one of their deeper mental connections. Vexithara hesitated, his thoughts heavy with concern. "What you ask is dangerous. The Void Hunger's true form can drive minds to madness. I need to understand what we're dealing with." Reluctantly, the ancient warrior shared his memories of the entity. Through his eyes, Hyun saw something that defied description. It wasn't a creature in any normal sense, but rather a living absence, a hungry void that took the shape of whatever its victims feared most. When it touched a world, plants withered, oceans turned black, and people simply gave up hope and faded away. "For 4,000 years I have held it back," Vexthara explained, his mental voice carrying exhaustion that went bone deep. "But the effort is killing me slowly. My people's technology turned me into a living battery, using my life force to power the psychic barriers that keep the Void Hunger contained. Each day I grow weaker." Hyun could feel it too, the constant drain on his energy, like trying to hold a dam together with his bare hands, while water poured through 1,000 cracks. It was amazing that he had lasted this long. But as the weeks passed, something unexpected started happening. The longer Hyun and her team stayed near Vexthara, the stronger he seemed to become. His red energy veins pulsed brighter, and his voice in her mind carried less exhaustion. "Your species possesses something unique," he told her during one of their evening conversations. Hyun had gotten into the habit of sitting near him while writing her research notes, their minds connected in comfortable companionship. "Hope persists even in darkness. I had forgotten such a thing existed." The breakthrough came when Choi Min was working on a broken scanner near Vexithara's chamber. A power surge overloaded the device, and sparks flew everywhere. Instead of panicking, Min just laughed and started fixing it with whatever spare parts he could find. "Humans are weird," he said cheerfully, rewiring the device with a hair clip and some cable. "Any other species would see this as a disaster. We just see it as a puzzle to solve. That's when Hyun realized what made humans different. Other alien species approached Vexithara with fear, terror, or at best cautious respect. Their minds were closed off, protecting themselves from his psychic emanations. But humans were naturally curious and empathetic. Instead of building walls, in their minds they opened doors. "We don't just survive your mental contact," Hyun explained to Vexithara. "We're actually buffering it somehow. Human emotional resilience is creating a shield that protects both of us." Lee So-young had noticed it too. "The alien fleets are detecting changes in the station's energy patterns. Whatever we're doing, it's affecting the entire structure." Through their growing bond, Vexithara began to remember things he thought were lost forever. He recalled the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of protecting others, the simple pleasure of having someone to talk to. For millennia, his existence had been nothing but an endless struggle against the void hunger. Now, for the first time since his civilization fell, he had a purpose beyond mere survival. "I had forgotten," he whispered in Hyun's mind one night, as she worked late in her makeshift laboratory. "I had forgotten what it felt like to have hope for tomorrow." The alien fleets still surrounded them, growing more nervous each day as readings from Omega-9 continued to change. But inside the station, something beautiful was happening. An ancient warrior was remembering what it meant to be alive, and 4 humans were proving that sometimes the best way to face darkness was simply to refuse to face it alone. Something was going terribly wrong with the ancient prison. The void, hunger, trapped for 4,000 years, had sensed that Vexithara was no longer completely alone. The entity began pushing harder against its psychic chains, testing for weaknesses it hadn't found in millennia. Kim Hyun first noticed the problem when her coffee cup started floating in mid-air during breakfast. Around the station, gravity flickered on and off like a broken light switch. Metal walls rippled like water, and corridors that should have led to the cafeteria suddenly opened into rooms that couldn't possibly exist. "Doctor, the readings are going insane," Park Jin reported, his voice shaking as he watched his instruments register impossible numbers. "Space-time is bending around us. I'm detecting gravitational waves that shouldn't be possible." Outside Omega-9, the assembled alien fleets were experiencing their own nightmare. Reality distortions spread outward from the station like ripples in a pond. Zephyrian ships found their navigation computers showing star maps of galaxies that didn't exist. Corvaxian dreadnoughts reported weapon systems firing backwards through time. The Andromedan crystal vessels began changing colors randomly, their crews struggling to maintain control as their own crystalline bodies started resonating with frequencies from other dimensions. Admiral Keth Zor of the Zephyrian fleet sent an urgent message to his homeworld. "The ancient seal is breaking. We must destroy the station immediately before the void hunger escapes." But even as the alien governments prepared their ultimate weapons, something far more dangerous was happening. Inside Omega-9, Vexithara was losing his battle. "The barrier fails," he warned Kim Hyun, his mental voice filled with desperate urgency. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, not normal shadows, but patches of absolute nothingness that hurt to look at. "I cannot maintain it much longer. You must flee before it breaks free completely." Hyun could feel the strain he was under. The void hunger was pressing against his psychic defenses like a massive weight trying to crush him. For 4 millennia, his isolation had been his strength. With no other minds nearby, the entity had nothing to feed on except his own carefully controlled thoughts. But now, with humans present, their emotions and fears were giving the creature new strength. "It feeds on our presence," Vexithara explained, his towering form beginning to flicker like a dying hologram. "Connection was forbidden because connection gives it power. I was meant to face this alone." Lee So-young burst into the chamber, her face pale with terror. "Doctor, the alien fleets are powering up planet-killer weapons. They're going to destroy the entire station in 30 minutes. We need to evacuate now." Through the station's sensors, Hyun could see the massive energy build-up from dozens of warships. The Corvaxian dreadnoughts were charging their reality shatter cannons. The Zephyrian battlecruisers had deployed dimensional bombs that could erase matter from existence. Even the normally peaceful Andromedans were preparing to sacrifice their most powerful crystal ships in a desperate kamikaze attack. Choi Min ran in from the engine room, carrying an armload of emergency supplies. "The Seoul Dawn is prepped for launch. We can be clear of the blast zone in 15 minutes if we leave right now." But Hyun wasn't moving toward the exit. Instead, she was frantically searching through her research notes and the ancient tablet. Fragments. Her mind was racing, connecting dots that had been invisible before. "Wait," she said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with inspiration. "What if we've been thinking about this all wrong?" She pulled up her files on human psychology and compared them with the Kethmari texts. "Vexithara, you were alone, because the entity feeds on connection, right? But what if that's only true for certain kinds of connection?" The ancient warrior's form solidified slightly as he focused on her words. "Explain." "The void hunger feeds on fear, despair, and negative emotions. When other species approach you, they're terrified. Their fear feeds the entity and makes it stronger. But human, we're not just afraid. We're curious, hopeful, determined to help. What if instead of feeding the creature, the right kind of connection could actually starve it?" Her plan was crazy, but it was the only chance they had. Instead of one person bearing the impossible burden alone, they could create a network of human minds to share the load. Not just any humans, volunteers who understood the risk and chose to help anyway. The alien representative screamed that it was suicide when Hyun's emergency broadcast went out across human space. "You'll doom the galaxy," the Zephyrian admiral transmitted. "The entity will consume thousands of minds instead of one." But humans were different from other species in ways the aliens had never understood. Within hours, responses started pouring in from across human space. Yang Hai-won, a cargo pilot from Mars Colony, was among the first to volunteer. Her message was simple but powerful. If one person can hold back the darkness for 4,000 years, imagine what thousands could do together. Kim Tae-hyung, a teacher from Europa Station, sent his own response. "My students deserve a galaxy, without monsters hiding in the dark. Count me in." More volunteers came forward every hour. Park So-min, a mining engineer from the asteroid belt. Lee Dong-wook, a farmer from the agricultural worlds. Ordinary people making an extraordinary choice, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their stubborn refusal to abandon someone who needed help. As the alien fleets prepared to fire, and the void hunger pressed harder against its weakening prison, Kim Hyun began the most dangerous experiment in galactic history, teaching an ancient alien warrior that sometimes the best way to face impossible odds was to make sure you didn't face them alone. The response from humanity was beyond anything Kim Hyun had dared to hope for. Her emergency broadcast had reached every human settlement across the galaxy, and the volunteers were coming forward in numbers that shocked even her optimistic heart. Jung Woo-jin was working a double shift in the ice mines of Europa when he heard the call. He was just a regular guy who operated heavy machinery, but something about the message struck him deep. "My grandfather always said that real strength comes from standing together," he transmitted back. "I'm in." Kim Subin was tending her crops on the agricultural world of Kepler 442b when the broadcast interrupted her morning routine. She was a simple farmer who had never even seen an alien, but she understood what it meant to fight against something that wanted to destroy what you loved. "Count me in," she said simply. "If we can save one life, we can save them all." The volunteers came from everywhere. Park Min-ho, a janitor on a space station near Alpha Centauri. Lee Hae-jin, a mechanic fixing shuttles in the Outer Rim. Choi Young-soo, a retired soldier living quietly on a moon colony. They were teachers, pilots, engineers, artists, and ordinary people who made an extraordinary choice. As each volunteer linked their mind to the growing network, something incredible began to happen. The psychic connection that Kim Hyun had established with Vexithara expanded, creating a web of human consciousness that stretched across the galaxy. But this wasn't just a bunch of people thinking together. It was something completely new. "I can feel them all," Vexithara said in wonder, his mental voice stronger than it had been in centuries. "Their hopes, their determination, their refusal to give up. It's like having my people back again." The ancient warrior's form began to change. The cracks in his crystalline armor sealed themselves, and the red energy veins pulsed brighter than they had in millennia. But more importantly, the crushing weight he had carried alone for 4,000 years was now shared among thousands of willing minds. The void, hunger, which had been pressing harder against its prison as the network formed, suddenly found itself facing something it had never encountered before. Instead of fear and despair to feed on, it met an ocean of human stubbornness and hope. The entity recoiled like it had been burned. Outside the station, the alien fleets watched in amazement as the reality distortions began to stabilize. Admiral Kethzor of the Zephyrian fleet stared at his instruments in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "The dimensional readings are actually improving." But the humans weren't content to just hold the line. Yang Haiwan, flying her cargo ship through the asteroid belt, felt the psychic network connect with her mind and gasped. Through the link, she could see the interdimensional wound that had birthed the void hunger, a tear in space-time itself. That had been festering for millions of years. "We can fix this," she transmitted to the network. "Not just contain it, actually heal it." The collective human consciousness, guided by Vexthara's ancient knowledge, began to do something that should have been impossible. Instead of just holding back the darkness, they started pouring their combined will and determination into the wound itself. Slowly, impossibly, the tear in reality began to close. Kim Tae-hyung, the teacher from Europa Station, felt tears running down his face as he experienced the healing through the network. "It's working," he whispered. "We're actually doing it." The process took hours, with thousands of human minds working together like the instruments of a vast orchestra. Each person contributed something unique: hope, determination, love, the simple human refusal to accept that some problems can't be solved. The void hunger, starved of the negative emotions it needed to survive, began to weaken and fade. When it was over, the interdimensional rift was gone completely, sealed by an act of collective will that the galaxy had never seen before. The ancient prison that had held the entity was no longer needed. For the first time in 4,000 years, Vexthara took a step forward. His massive form moved slowly at first, like someone learning to walk again after a long illness. But with each step he grew stronger and more sure of himself. The human network supported him, thousands of minds offering encouragement and strength. "I am no longer the last of the Kethmari," he declared, his voice now carrying warmth instead of ancient sorrow. Through the psychic link, every volunteer could hear him clearly. "Through your species, my people's sacrifice has meaning again. You have given me something I thought was lost forever, a future." Kim Hyun watched in amazement as the warrior, who had once been the most feared being in the galaxy, knelt before her small research team. His towering form bowed deeply, a gesture of gratitude that brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you," he said simply, "for refusing to let me face the darkness alone." The alien fleets surrounding Omega-9 were in chaos. 3 galactic empires had prepared for war, only to witness the most impossible peace in galactic history. The humans had done something that violated every principle of psychic warfare. They had turned connection into a weapon against entities that fed on isolation and despair. As news of the event spread across the galaxy, Vexthara made his choice. He would come to Earth, not as a prisoner or a weapon, but as humanity's first alien ambassador. The species that had saved him would need protection from those who feared what they had accomplished. The volunteers began disconnecting from the network one by one, returning to their normal lives with memories of an extraordinary shared experience. Jung Woo-jin went back to his mining equipment, but now he knew that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. Kim Soo-bin returned to her crops, but she carried with her the knowledge that caring for others was the most powerful force in the universe. The galaxy had learned a new lesson that day. The young species from Earth possessed something rarer and more valuable than any advanced technology or devastating weapon: the simple courage to care for others, even when it seemed impossible, even when everyone else said it was suicide, even when the darkness seemed too strong to overcome. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from superior firepower or ancient wisdom, but from the stubborn human refusal to abandon someone who needed help. The end.